Welcome to DowerTin.com. Today we're going to take a look at a mouse. This is Logitech's MX Ergo Plus mouse, which is basically a thumb-based trackball mouse, and unlike their cheaper version, this is actually the MX series, so it's sort of a more of an elite version of their trackball mouse. And well, there's a good reason for why it is, I guess, an MX, and why it's more expensive, just because the features set on this thing is much more robust than the base one that they do make. One of the things right here you can tell from here is that it supports different angles, lying flat a little bit more, and there's actually a little thing here that actually makes the mouse go up further. It also supports their flow, which is something that's new to some of the MX series mice, as well as some of the more higher end ones they have, where you can actually control two devices with one single mouse. Alright, so let's open this up and take a look at what we get in the box. Alright, so I have everything unpacked here. The only thing I don't have showing is the micro USB cable for charging, but pretty much this is what's in the box. The mouse itself, this little metal plate, a riser, that's like a rubberized thing, and a unifying connector. So the mouse is Bluetooth, so you don't have to use this unifying connector if you don't want to. So you have the option. So if your computer does not have Bluetooth, you can actually use this connector to hook up to this device. So we'll put that aside, and we'll take a look at what else we have here. So the mouse itself here, we have this little metal plate that's actually used to elevate the device in different angles, the two different angles, and then it kind of sits in magnetically, and it sort of locks in place, and you can use it to kind of, basically lock in the two different positions. Now, I'll show on the table this way, but right now, then if you want a more steep angle, you have this, which also kind of has a magnet that kind of keeps it in place, and it puts it into even sharper angle here. So let's take a look at the mouse real quick, at some of the features we have here. So looking from the front here, we have the micro USB port for charging. Underneath the bottom, we have this area where the plate magnetically clips on-off switch. There's a hole here, which is used to actually pop the ball out for cleaning, because if you're like me and are old enough to remember when mice actually had balls in them, they actually suffered from getting dirty, and actually that's going to be happening here. And so the hole there lets you kind of pop the ball out to get the contacts, to actually clean the contacts out. So looking at the device from the top here, we have our right and left mouse buttons. We have the wheel that actually also supports a left and right movement. We have a 1 and 2 button here, which actually is used for toggling between two different devices. Now, a little bit different than some of the other MX devices. This only allows 2 devices as opposed to 3 on like the MX Master. We have 2 buttons here that can be used for forward and backwards. And on the side here, we have well, right now it's by default set up as a precision button, so that you can actually slow down the mouse for more precise movements, so that if you're not used to tracking precisely, you hit this button and it will work that way. The mouse itself on this end here is kind of a rubberized material, so it's not slippery. It's actually got a little bit of grip to it, and the buttons themselves are smooth. And the ball itself it feels really good to use on the thumb, and yes, that's what the device is. So ironically, it's almost like the way the hand positioning is, it almost begs to have a third button over here, but it does not have such a thing. Alright, so next thing we'll do is I will go and hook this up onto 2 devices, and we'll see how well it toggles between the 2 of them, as well as looking at the flow software to see how well it works between 2 different devices without having to switch between the 2. Alright, so here I have my setup, and I have my 15-inch MacBook Pro over here and my old Surface Pro 3. And so I'm going to basically pair this guy up with both of them. Now, just to be clear, the software Logitech options really isn't necessary, but I do highly recommend it because it gives you more, options for using the mouse. All right, so I'm going to zoom into the screen closer, and we'll work on this on the Mac first, and then on the Windows machine. All right, so we'll work on the Mac first. And so I'm going to take the mouse, I'm going to turn it on, switch back here, and I'm going to basically hold the pair button down, and you'll see that the number 1 will begin to flash quickly. All right, so there we are. So now with this, even with Logitech Options software, it'll still take you to the Bluetooth settings to pair. So if you run the Logitech Options software, it'll basically tell you to go add devices, and doing so will just take you to add Bluetooth device, because I'm going to use Bluetooth. I'm not going to use the unifying connector. And so in here, you see that it says MX Ergo. So I'll hit connect, and in a moment, the number 1 there will stop flashing, and MX Ergo appears as connected. So if I close this, what will happen now is it should appear in the list here. So if I hit OK in the corner, now the software appears and showing the options here. Now I'll go into the software in a moment. I'm going to now do the same thing on the Windows side using my Surface Pro 3. All right, so I'm going to basically take the device now, and I will push the button down to number 2, and I'll hold the button down a little longer, and in a few seconds it will start flashing. It's flashing like that. So now in here, once again, the Logitech Options software will run and basically just take you to the Bluetooth settings. So if we just go to the Bluetooth settings ourselves from here and go to the Add Bluetooth Devices and Bluetooth, and we'll look for it, and there it is. The MX Ergo appears. Click on that, and it's going to connect in a moment, and the number 2 is now solid. So now the device is paired up on both devices. Alright, so I have the software set up on both, and I have options running on both of them right now. And so you can see right now with it set up, I have one being my Mac side, so that you can see my mouse moving over here. Alright, and I don't want to go there just yet, but I can move the windows around without a problem then. But if I want to go to the other side, I have to basically hit number 2 to go to here, number 2, and then basically immediately go there. And that works perfectly fine. You could actually work with this way and without any problems. However, the one thing is, like, for example, I go to the edge and nothing happens. It would be kind of cool if I can move between the both of them. And that's actually where Logitech Flow comes in. Let's talk about Flow. So in this little tab up here, Flow gives the option that if you turn it on, to basically toggle between the 2 different devices that are set up. So if I turn it on right here, all right, now the machine, you can set the location for where the setup is. So it so happens that it's perfectly set up so that on the right side is my Surface Pro 3. And so with the corner here, it's going to basically allow me to go across to this device without having to switch the toggle over here. So with this turned on, all right, the options here says move to the edge. We'll switch to the computers, and there's some screen corners as well as copying and pasting. So if I move my mouse over, you'll see that I'm on this side. It's a little janky at times, but I am on here now, so you can see that I can click on move my mouse here. All right, and then if I move back over this way, I go back to this side. All right, and so I'm now on this machine. So with this Flow setup, I can easily move between 2 different machines without having to worry about having to go and click this little toggle here to move around. So that's actually a really very handy utility. And so once again, I can go over this way. I can say open up Chrome over here and do what I want to do, and then move back over this way, and I'm over here, and I can do the same type of thing. Open up Chrome, do my own stuff over here, and it's just a really nice way of moving back and forth between the 2 different systems. Like sometimes it does get stuck though. So it gets a little bit sticky sometimes. It takes a little bit to getting it to go across. But overall, it actually does work pretty well. Alright, so let's take a look at the Logitech software now. Now we've looked at the Flow already, but so let's take a look at the other options. We have Trackball by default here. It talks about the various buttons that you can assign, and then the point and scroll section just gives you options for scrolling, directional scrolling, and the pointer speed. All right, so from here though, we'll look on the top here. We see that the buttons are defaulted to the side ones being forward and backwards, similar to how regular mice have the thumb buttons for that operation. Then there's the middle button. So under the scroll wheel, if you click it, it is the middle button by default here. And then the directionals on the scroll wheel will do a scroll left and scroll right. And on the sides, the thumb button, which goes into precision mode. If I turn that on by clicking on it, it just makes the mouse really, really slow, so that the pointer just basically is a more precise selection mode as opposed to basically moving normally. So it's handy if you want to have some precise movements that sometimes the thumb isn't quite up to the task for. All right, so going over here, we can swap the left and right mouse buttons if you want. And if you click on more, it just gives you information about the device, right? So it talks about the device here, link to the support page, the firmware, and some options for the notifications and if the lock key is pressed. If you have these settings saved, you can sign up for a Logitech account and have them saved on there. And the software gives it a version, the option for looking for updates, and if you're a developer, enabling development mode. And then there's analytics if you want to share them with Logitech. Okay, so then Other options then, if over here, we select the point and scroll, and on here is all applications. So what you can do with this, if you turn it on, is you can make specific button sets for certain applications. So if you're a Photoshop user, or if you're a 3D Studio Max user, or just any other program in particular that has different type of settings, you can use this instead of all applications being a global setting for all things on your computer. And the software works the same on the Mac side too. There really is no difference. So one of the cool things I like to do is I don't have much use for the whole scroll left and right. So what I like to do is you can program these things, and so I like to actually use this so I can do a previous and next desktop. So going left, I want to go previous, and then on the right, I want to go to the next. So these are some of the cool things you can do. If you look at this, all these options are available for however you decide to program them. And if you want, you can actually set this up to be a gesture button. So the gesture button is kind of neat because with that, it gives you all these other options. So I open that up, all these new things come up. So by default, gesture button allows you to do virtual desktops. So once again, if you click on that and hold it, you can basically scroll the trackball left or right to go to the next and previous desktop, up for start menu, down for hiding desktop, or just clicking it will go to the task view, or other things like Windows management for maximizing or swapping left and right, and those kind of things. So all these options are available. So this is why I highly recommend having the options software, even though it's really not required. I think it's a good thing to have. So just by default, if I just did this, all right, and I just started using it just like this, if I just toggle the wheel to the left or the right, it goes to another desktop, just like that. And what's cool about these desktops is that you can have other things open. Like so if I have a Chrome browser open over here, and I can scroll it to size it properly, so you can see here, I can then just tap to the left and it goes to the next one. Right to the next one, these are really handy speed tips. So if you don't have multiple monitors, have things lying around, you can quickly go to these different desktops. And if you click the middle button like I have for virtual desktops, it goes to this thing here showing all the options I have running. It's just a really nice set of tools to have. So depending on what you want to do, if you want a middle button or not, just your button, those are all options available to you that basically you can use. So these are really handy. And once again, you can save the settings if you decide to log in and create an account. But a quick look at the software, it gives you lots of the customization for however you want to use this device. All right, so let's try wrapping this up. I'll do some comparisons now to some other devices I have, just to get a feel for the size and some of the ergonomic features of this device. All right, so I have some mice I have here that we can compare with the MX Ergo. I have here my Kennsington Trackball mouse. Obviously, it's a bigger mouse, and it's a wired mouse as opposed to wireless. They do have a wireless one. I just don't happen to have one. And then I have my MX Master first generation over here, so we can compare kind of features what they have. So looking at this, the trackballs. The Kensington is a much larger ball. All right, it's actually meant to be a whole hand type of trackball. And it's a good mouse. It's very interesting. With their own software, you can actually have 4 buttons here, and you can program them to do different things. And then scrolling, which is very unique on this, is you can actually just twist the ball to actually perform a top-down scroll. So, this is what it is. It is a trackball mouse. It's about on par price-wise with the MX Ergo. In comparison to this, the Ergo gives you more features, obviously, because this is like a single device, all right, and this doesn't have some of the extra capabilities that the Logitech offers you. I mean, by all means, it's still a good device, but this is, I think, better. So going for a comparison to another Logitech device, this is the MX Master, and this is not the number 2. The first one does not work with Flow. That's a very important distinction. If you want to use Flow, you have to get the MX Master 2 series, okay, or the MX Anywhere 2 series, okay. So looking at what you have on the device here, looking at this guy, at the bottom you have 3 different devices you can go to, so you can sync up with 3 different devices. That is different than this. This is only just 2, okay, if that matters for you. This has a bit more buttons on it, so you have a thumb button down on this side here, and then you have a dedicated horizontal scroll wheel, as well as a top-down configuration for a forward and backward button. On top, standard left and right mouse buttons, and then this one here is a lock-unlock for the wheel, so you can actually flip the wheel to do speed scrolling. Okay, that's something that's not available on the MX Ergo if that is something that is important to you. Okay, in general, size-wise, this mouse is a little bit smaller, obviously, because it's meant to move around the desk, as opposed to this one, which kind of sits there. Height-wise, is actually very similar. They're kind of similarly shaped from the side. See how they have that nice curve for the hand to sit on. So, you know, this is actually still a very good mouse if you want a traditional style mouse or the trackball. Just for fun, I dug out an old Trackman Marble. This is a mouse that this is based off of. So this is kind of like the granddaddy of this mouse. You can see from here, it has a lot of similarities. Not a whole lot has changed shape-wise. A little bit smaller, more buttons, but you know, the mouse ball is actually the same, which is kind of interesting, same size and all. So, you know, from a comparison, this is the grandfather of this mouse, and this was a great mouse back then, and this carries that legacy on. Now, there's also another mouse that is cheaper than this, about half the cost that Logitech makes, but I don't have it because I had no interest in that one, because that one, it's okay, but this one has a lot more features that I really care about, and the definite use of the different angles for ergonomics, which we'll take a look in a moment. Alright, so I'm going to do my best to kind of show some of the ergonomics of how this mouse is from this view here. So first, taking a look at the device, you can see that with this plate, this plate gives you the option to use the device in two different angles. Okay, you have the flat angle this way, which, you know, some people like to use, or this one has a little bit more higher, so you can see the ball is a bit higher now. So let's talk about how it's used. So with a flat like this, your hand is sort of, you know, more or less flat. Okay, so and this is pretty comfortable. You know, the hand kind of goes over and just basically envelops the mouse. But my personal way of using it, I like to use it at this angle, and it's just a bit taller, and it's just a much more comfortable hand position as opposed to being more flat on the desk. And for those that want more, you can actually get this little rubber thing here, and it sticks with a magnet at the base, and you can see from here, this view here, you can see how much more vertical it is. So the ball is actually almost all the way to the top, and so from here you have an even higher angle, and actually makes the mouse a bit taller. So if you have big hands, that actually might be more comfortable for you, but I tend not to like it that way. So with this, you know, you can't invert it back, but it gives you the option. Nice to have that kind of option. And so the bottom is a non-slip surface, so it's kind of a rubbery type material that'll keep the mouse from scooching around all over the desk. But it can get dirty, and you need to wipe it down occasionally. Now, the other thing I want to do for cleaning wise, you know, because it actually is a ball, unlike a laser, you do have to kind of clean it. So if you take this plate off, there's a hole down here. So I had to get a pencil because the tip was a little bit too big. But you can slip it through here and just kind of push it out, and the ball comes flying out. All right, as it rolls across my desk. And you see that once the ball is out, you can see right in here, this is where the laser is. Okay, and then in here, there's these little balls that are that basically are the gliders that the ball rolls on. So there's 3 of them, and they do get kind of grungy, so you kind of have to go and do something to kind of clean them out, because they're kind of gross, see, and that just builds up over time. And what's going to happen is it gets kind of sluggish and harder to move, and it feels kind of rough. So once you do that, clean it out, put it back in, you're back in business. And you put the plate back down, and you're good to go. All right. So Logitech's put a lot of thought into this mouse, and it really is. It's one of my daily drivers. On my second computer I use at work, this is exactly what I use. I use it all day long for my programming, as well as you know, just my daily tasks. And I used to have a lot of wrist problems from mousing around. And even though I do use this one a lot at work, but you know, this really is just very, very comfortable, and I've had a lot less wrist problems but when using this, so I really can't recommend this enough. This is a great mouse. You know, for the trackball wise, like I said, Logitech's put a lot of thought into the design. It really is an excellent device, and yes, it is expensive, but you have to understand that, you know, this is something you use every day, and you're going to use it for long periods of time, and so it is probably worth the investment to get something like this. All right, so there you have it. It's kind of an extensive review. I talk about a lot of things that this mouse does and it can do with it. If there's anything you want to see that I missed, or anything else that you want me to try on this thing, you know, feel free to send me some comments below. And, you know, once again, you know, like and subscribe to my channel. Thanks for watching.